you. In the Python programming course, we had covered what are the features of Python, what are the different methods to run Python program, and some of the basic elements like how do you comment in a Python program, single line commenting, multi-line commenting. Then the very important concept of Python, which is indentation, and how to use indentation to create different blocks in your program. Then we also talked about how to have input output in Python program. Then we discussed some of the operators in Python programming. We discussed if else statement. Then the different data types like what are strings, list, tuple, dictionary, numerical data type, all those things we discussed in our previous sessions. So in this video we are going to talk about the iterative statements. You have already experienced the iterative statements in C, C++ as well as in Java programming. Generally the statements are executed sequentially. In a program all the statements will be executed sequentially, and if we want to execute a block of code by altering the sequential flow of execution, we use control structures. Now, when I say control structures, these control structures may be used for a repeated execution of a statement or a set of statements, or you can use it to execute a block of code based on a particular condition also. So these type of statements are called as branching statements, right? You execute a block of code based on a condition. This can be called as branching statements. Whereas for repeated execution of statements, we use looping statements or iterative statements. Looping statements allow to execute a statement or a set of statements multiple times, right? So repeatedly, if you want to execute a block of code, then we can use iterative statements, which are also known as looping statements. Now in Python, we have two different looping statements, for loop and the while loop. And for loop also, we have a special case of for loop with else statement. In the same way, for the while loop we have the else statement also. Apart from that, these looping structures can be manipulated with break, continue and pass statements also. So let us see how these statements are, these break, continue, pass and else are used along with this looping statements. Let us start with for loop. We know that for loop is used for iterating over a sequence or a collection. When I say collection, if you want to iterate over a list of data or a tuple, which is also a collection, or if you want to have a dictionary. Dictionary is another collection of data, and if you want to have it in the dictionary, you can iterate through the items that are available in the dictionary, a string or a set. Again, a string is also a collection of characters. So if you want to iterate through the characters in a string, then we can use the for loop. Now these for loops work like an iterator method, which is found in other programming languages, which are especially object-oriented programming languages. So with the for loop, we can execute a set of statements once for each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. So that is the point to be noted here. When we iterate over a sequence or collection, obviously a list, tuple, dictionary, these are all collection of items. So if you want to iterate through these collection of items, right? So you want to iterate through each item in a list, tuple, set, etc. We can use the for loop. This is an example. You can observe this example here. When you want to iterate through the items in the list, right? So let us create an list here. I'm creating a list called as fruits, which are having 3 string values. And when I want to iterate through each item, right? So these are the items in the list. When I want to iterate through each item in the list, I'm using the for loop here. And you can observe for in structure is used here as the iterative statement. So I take variable x and fruits. Fruits is a collection of items which is known as a list. And iterating through each item, I am using the variable x. So in each iteration, it take values right from the first value to the last value of the collection, right? Whereas if I want to iterate through the characters in a string, then I will be saying for x in the string, and it will take each character. It will take each character from the string, right? So these kind of examples we had already discussed in our demo programs also. Okay, so here what will be the output of this particular code segment? First time in the for loop, it will take the value apple, and that will be printed. It iterates for the second item. Second item will be banana will be printed, and the third item cherry will be printed. Whereas for this for loop, it will take each character, right? So in the first iteration it takes B, second iteration it takes A, then third N, A, N, etc. So this is how the iteration goes with for in structure. Now in the for in structure, I can use the break and continue statement also. It is very much similar to your C++ Java programming. So if you want to break in between in the iteration, we can use the break statement. Or if you want to continue to the next iteration, we use the continue, right? So when you want to break from the loop, we use the break statement. Continue is used for continuing to the next iteration. You don't break here, but you are going to continue to the next iteration. So what happens here? It will be taking each item from the fruits list, and when x is equal to banana, by the time it breaks. So overall the code will be displaying apple. For the first iteration, x will be apple. X is not equal to banana, so it will not break. It comes to the next statement. There it prints apple. It goes to the next iteration in the for loop. And you can observe here we are using only indentation to specify the block of statements in the for loop. And in the second iteration, it takes the value of banana in x, and x is now equal to banana. So now it breaks from the loop. Therefore, this print statement will not be executed. So output of this code segment will be only apple. Now let us see how continue works here. Fruits will have all these 3 values. Each iteration will take the value from the list. So first time it is going to be apple. Now apple is not equal to banana, so it will be printing apple. Then second time x value will be banana. Since banana is equal to banana, it will continue. So when it is continuing, you can observe all the statements following the continue in the loop body will be ignored. So it will not print banana. Instead, it continues to the next iteration. So in the next iteration, x value will be cherry, and cherry is not equal to banana. So it will be printing cherry. Then it goes to the next iteration. So no more values are there in the list. So it comes out of the for loop. So the output of this code segment will be apple and cherry. Whereas here it prints only apple. Then in the second iteration, the value is equal to banana, so it is going to exit from the for loop. Whereas here in this case, what happens? In the second iteration, the x value is equal to banana, so it ignores the statements following the continue and it continues to the next iteration. So in the next iteration it takes the value of cherry. So the output of this code segment will be apple and cherry, and the banana will not be printed, right? So this is how it works with the for loop. It is very much similar to your other programming languages. Now, so in here in the foreign structure, we were taking the items from the collection. But whereas in our C++ and Java programming, we generally give for I is equal to 0 and I less than 10, I plus plus. So you want to give a range of values or a number range for iterating through the for loop. In that case, we are going to use range function. So you cannot give it like for I is equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus concept is not there in Python. So what we are going to do, we are going to use the range function to specify how many number of times we want to iterate through the loop. Okay. So here, if I want to have a specified number of times, we are going to use the range function. This range function returns a sequence of numbers which will be generally starting with 0 by default, and it increments by 1 by default, and it ends at a specified number, right? So the range function is used to specify what is the starting value, what is the increment you want, and how many number of times you want to repeat it. Okay, let us see some example, then it will be more clear for you. These are the examples for the range function. You can observe in the range function, initially I am giving only one argument. So if you have only one value, then it will be taken as how many number of times you want to repeat. So by default, the starting value is going to be 0. So starting from 0, you want to repeat it 10 times, right? Remember, the range function will return the starting value as 0. So if I simply give a range 10, that means I want to execute this block for 10 times, right? So when it is 10 times, the starting value is going to be always 0. So for x in range 10, that means the value of the range will be from 0 to 9. So in the first iteration, x will take value 0. Second iteration, x will take value 1, 2, 3 and so on, because I have not specified any increment value, I have not specified any starting value. I have just specified only how many number of times it is to be repeated. So since I gave number of times, default starting value is going to be 0 and default increment value will be 1. So this loop displays the values from 0 to 9. Okay, so 10 times it will be repeating. Suppose if you want to have a different starting value, not 0, you want to have a different starting value, right? I am going to give a different starting value 1 and I want to repeat it for 10 times. Okay, so by the time, please observe, it will be displaying 1 to 10. It will be displaying 1 to 10, right? It is not going to be 1 to 9. Please correct it. It is going to be 1 to 10. Okay. Yeah. So here what happens, yeah, let us try this. I think we will try it in our spider. Let me start the spider. Let us check whether it is going to have okay, so let it start. Let us see whether it is going to print right from 1 to 9 or 1 to 10. Okay, so before spider has already opened. Okay, So let me have this code. Let me delete all these things which we had already tried in our previous sessions. Okay, now let me copy this code. Let me clear the console, try running it. Yeah, indentation I didn't give, so it is giving you an error. Okay, so now I'm going to execute it. So it is displaying only from 1 to 9. Yeah. So what happens now? 10 becomes the last, 10 becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So whenever I give 10, it is going to take it as less than 10. It is going to take it as less than 10. Okay. So starting value and 10, this is something like, see, this is somewhat similar to your condition what you give in your C, like I equal to 1, then I less than 10, then I plus plus. So this is how we give, right? In our C++ programming, we give the condition like this. Okay. So the starting value is going to be represented as the first value, and the second value will be taken as the end or the last value for your condition to be checked. So what happens here? When I give for x in range 1, 10, the range will be starting from 1, but the value will be less than 10. So this is how it is going to work in Python programming. Okay. So the output is obviously 1 to 9 and it is not 1 to 10. Please make a note of it. It is not 1 to 10. It is going to be 1 to 9. Why? Because it is going to take the range from 1, but the last value is specified as 10. That means it is going to take it as less than 10 and not equal to 10. Now suppose, say for example, here the default increment value is 1, right? Suppose if you want to have the increment value to be 2, then you have to give 3 arguments for the range function. So the first argument will be taken as the starting value, second argument will be taken as the last value to be tested, and the third argument will be taken as the increment value. So what happens here? For x in range 1, starting value 20, it is something like I less than 20, right? Here, so here it is going to be x less than 20 and x will be incremented by 2. So this is very much similar to your C++ code, which is like for I is equal to 1, comma, I less than 20, comma, I is equal to I plus 2. So it will be displaying only the odd numbers starting from 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and you can observe only up to 19 it is going to be displayed. So this is how the range function displays the values, and this is how the range function is used for specifying how many number of times you want to repeat the set of statements. Okay, so please observe the argument here is not going to specify like how many number of times. Instead it is going to give you the range. So always the range by default starts from 0 and the n value, whatever n you are going to give here, n minus 1 will be the last value. Now apart from this range function, for loop can also be used with else keyword. So the else keyword in a for loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the loop is finished, right? So once the loop is completed, you want to display something, right? Or you want to execute some set of statements after completing the loop. You want to do it only once, right? Only at the end of the loop function, sorry, only at the end of the loop. That means when you finish that particular looping, then you want to display something or you want to execute some set of statements, there you can use the else block, right? The else block in a for statement will be used to specify a block of code which will be executed when the loop is finished. But suppose, say for example, you print all the results and finally you want to display a message like printing completed. So this printing completed you want to display only once, right? So when the loop finished printing all the results, you want to display a message like printing completed. Then you can use the else block. We'll see an example, then it will be more clear for you. Observe this example, range function along with the else statement. So here I am having for x in range 10. So that means it is going to take values from 0 to 9, right? So 10 is the last value to check the terminating condition, and by default 0 is going to be the starting value. So it takes the value 0 to 9. It is going to print all the values 0 to 9. After completing it, when the for loop is about to exit, it is about to exit by the time it comes to the else block, then it is going to print printing finished. So this loop will display 0 to 9, and then before executing the loop it prints printing finished. Okay. Now this else block sometimes may be used with the break statement also, right? So here you can observe in the for loop I have for x in range 10. If x value is equal to 5, it breaks. Okay. If x is not equal to 5, it is going to print it. Now the else block will not be executed if the loop is stopped by a break statement. Why? Only if the last condition is checked, and when the last condition becomes false, by the time the else block will be executed. But here it is not reaching to the last terminating condition. It is not reaching to the terminating condition. Instead, in between you break from the loop. If so, the else block will not be executed. So here the output is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. When it is equal to 5, it breaks from the for loop. So by the time all these statements will be ignored. So this is what you have to observe in the for loop which uses else block. So this is an example. So here I am going to have the for loop with the else block. So what happens? It prints all these values ranging from 0 to 9. It will be displaying, right? So this for statement will be executed. When it is about to execute the for loop, what it does? It says printing finished. Whereas when I have used the break statement, when I use the break statement, what it does? It displays 0 to 4, right? It displays 0 to 4 and it is not executing the else block. Why? Because it breaks when the x value is equal to 5. So when it breaks, all the statements below the break statement, all the statements below the break statement will be ignored in the for loop, right? So this is what we have to observe when else and break are used together in a for loop. And another statement we had seen, like pass can also be used in the for loop. So when you want to have a empty for loop, so sometimes in our C++ and Java we can have empty for loop, right? So here you cannot have for loops with empty. To have a for loop with no content, I need to use the pass statement. So this is how we will be using the pass statement, right? So I want to have an empty for loop for this, right? So if you are going to simply give this way, if you give only this way, it is going to give you an error, right? So this error will be displayed. But if you want to have the for loop without any content, then you need to use the pass function. Only then it will work. Okay, so that is it about the for loop. Then the another statement will be while loop. Another statement will be while loop. Let us see how to use the while loop for the iterative process. So your while loop is used to iterate over a block of code as long as the test expression is true. Whereas in the for statement what we had, if you want to iterate through a collection or if you want to iterate through a number of times using range, then we used a for loop, right? But whereas sometimes you want to iterate over a block of code as long as a particular condition is true, right? As long as a particular condition is true, you want to iterate through. When the condition is false, you want to break from the loop, for which we can use the while structure. So it is used to iterate over a block of code as long as the test expression, which is known as the condition in a while loop, is true. The test expression will be checked. If it is true, the body of the loop will be executed. If it is false, it exits from the while loop. So let us see an example here, which is very much similar to your C++ and Java programming. I am just checking whether x is less than or equal to 5. If it is less than or equal to 5, I am going to say sum is equal to sum plus x. You can observe I am using a shortcut assignment here. So this is the while loop. Alright. So what happens here? This I am using a format function for the printing also. All these points we had already discussed. The concepts of like how print can be used for displaying the output, how format can be given for specifying the format of the output, format specification, right? So we call it as format specification. Using format function, how a string can be framed for your output, all those things we discussed in our previous session. So this is how we use the while loop. So when I execute this code, this will be the output. You can observe here I am creating a string with curly braces which are called as placeholders, and I am using txt.format and I give the argument here. Or you can use this way also. You can have comma, separate all the values to be displayed by comma in a print function, then it will be displayed. Okay. Now this is as simple as your C++ and Java programming. You use while x less than or equal to 5, execute this particular statement. So these are the two statements which will be the body of the while loop, which will be repeated until x value becomes 5. Once x value is greater than 5, it exits from the while loop. Okay. And again, while loop can also be used with your break and continue, which is very much similar to your other programming languages. So with break statement, we can stop the loop even if the while condition is true, and we can have continue statement in a while loop to stop the current iteration and continue with the next iteration. It is similar to your for statement itself. So this is an example of how break can be used in your while loop. I have the same structure. So when x value is equal to 3, I give a break statement. So it is going to add 1. It will add 2 with the sum 1 and 2. When the x value becomes 3 in the iteration, it breaks from the while loop. So when it breaks, you can observe all the statements below the break will be ignored and it comes to the next statement of while structure. Okay. And this while loop can also be used with the else case. The else keyword in a while loop specifies a block of code to be executed when the condition becomes false and it exits from the while loop. So let us see how it is getting executed. I am having a while loop, x is equal to 1 and sum is equal to 0, and while x less than or equal to 5, I am having two statements in the body of the while loop, and I am having a else block here, right? So what happens? The while loop execution will be completed when the condition becomes false. When the condition becomes false, it will execute the else block and then it leaves the while loop. That is how it executes. So it is taking all the execution here. Then it comes to the else block. When x is equal to 6, it comes to the else block and it is going to print x value reached 5. Then it displays the result of sum using the format function as well as with the comma separated values in the print function. Okay, so this is how the else block in the while loop works, right? It is very much similar to your foreign structure itself. So in the foreign structure as well as in the while structure, we can use a else block, and this else block will be executed only when the while loop condition becomes false, and it will be executed only once. That is the point to be noted here, right? Now, so with that we are completing the iterative statements, the for statement as well as the while statement. So these are the exercises you have to do, or the programs, the Python program to generate Fibonacci series using the while loop. You are going to do it, and the factorial of a number using for loop you are going to do. Then you write another program which takes some strings as the input. Strings, that means more than one string, right? So many strings it is going to take as the input, and you are going to display the longest one, right? So you can use your length function to find out the length of each and every string, and whichever string is having the longest, whichever string is having the greatest length, that will be displayed as the output. Then the fourth one, you are going to count the number of vowels, consonants, digits and special characters in a given string. So these are the 4 programs you are going to take as the exercise, and we will be discussing the exercise, all these programs in the exercise in our live session. Okay, thank you.